Good day, coffee beans. This is General Agriculture. Definition of terms. Part 3 continuation.
Genetic engineering is the deliberate modification of the characteristics of an organism by manipulating its genetic material, DNA/genes. Genetics, the science or study of inheritance. Genome, all the genetic material in the chromosomes of a particular organism. Genotype, is the genetic makeup of an individual. Geographic Information System, GIS, is a computerized database system containing information on natural resources and other factors that can be analyzed and displayed in spatial or map format. Geotropic, refers to the turning downward in response to a stimulus caused by the force of gravity. Germ cell, is a cell capable of production or of sharing in reproduction. Germination, refers to the sequences of events occurring in a viable seed, starting with the inhibition of water that leads to the growth and development of an embryo. Gestation, period between conception and birth. Gestation period, period between the time of fertilization till delivery. Gibberellins, a group of hormones that contribute to the increase in cell size, and fruit yield, among other effects. Gilt, a young pig of either sex weighing approximately 60 kilograms. Glacier, a large mass of ice that moves slowly over the surface of the ground or down a valley. They originate in snowfields and terminate at lower elevations in a warmer environment where they melt. Glycolysis, is a respiratory process in which glucose is converted anaerobically into lactate or pyruvate with a net gain of 2 molecules of ADP. Gomer bull, male bovine with separated testicles that is used with a marker chalk to identify cows in estrus to be artificially inseminated. Goose, is a breeding female goose. Gosling, a baby goose. Grace period, in credit transaction, it refers to a period during which a borrower need not repay the principal and, sometimes, the interest. Grade, refers to the domestic animals produced by crossbreeding, wherein one of the parents is of purebred stock, usually the sire, and the other parent, an ordinary stock. Grade A milk, also referred to as fluid grade, produced under sanitary conditions that qualify it for fluid, beverage, consumption. Grade B milk, also referred to as manufacturing grade, not meeting Grade A standards. Less stringent standards generally apply. Grade number, is a designation indicating the quality of rice and corn commodity determined with reference to its acquired characteristics, for example premium, grade number 1, 2 and 3. Grade number 1, refers to any rice and corn variety which meet the second highest grade requirements for rice and corn as set forth in the herein prescribed national standards. Grade number 2, refers to any rice and corn variety which is lower in quality than grade number 1 but higher in quality than grade number 3, based on the grade requirements set forth in the herein prescribed national standards. Grade number 3, refers to any rice and corn variety which meet the lowest grade requirements for rice and corn as set forth in the herein prescribed national standards. Grafting, method of asexual propagation involving the transfer of aerial parts of one plant, scion, to the root or trunk material, stalk, of another plant. Grain, akaryopsis, a collective term for the cereals. Grain, refers to the arrangement, direction, or alignment of elements particularly fibers and vessels in wood or lumber. Under fiber direction, the specific terms are cross-grained, diagonal-grained, interlocked-grain, and straight-grained. Green, unseasoned lumber or other wood products containing free water in the cell cavities. Gray soil, the color is due to the poor organic matter or very low iron content. Gray soil is either low in fertility, poor in drainage or both. Gray water, domestic wastewater composed of wash water from kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks and tubs, clothes washers, and laundry tubs. Green belt, a strip of land kept in its natural state or in agricultural use to break up the continuous pattern of urban development. Green hams, are unsmoked cured hams. Green offal, digestive tract of ruminants such as the stomach, or the intestines which still contain fecal matter. Green sets, young onion plant for transplanting. Gross, the value received for a service or product before expenses are deducted. Gross area of a collector section: if only a collection of a collector is being tested, then TE gross area of the section shall include a proportional share of the area of all supports and partitions of the entire collector. Gross collector area: the area obtained by multiplying the width by the length of the outside of the collector. Grounds maintenance: the mowing, grooming, and general care of non-home lawns and grounds, such as industrial parks, schools, cemeteries, and golf courses. Grower: swine from 40 to 65 kilograms. Growing season: the portion of the year when soil temperatures are above biologic zero 41 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 degrees Celsius, as defined by soil taxonomy. Growth is an irreversible increase in cell size or cell number. Guard: a protective device designed and fitted to minimize the possibility of inadvertent contact with machinery hazards, as well as to restrict access to other hazardous areas. Guarded not possible, wherever conditions prevail which of guarded would render the auger unusable. Habitat: the native environment where a plant or animal naturally grows or lives. Hand feeding: feed is manually delivered to livestock at each meal. Hand mating: same as hand breeding, bringing a female to a male for service, breeding, after which she is removed from the area where the male is located. Haploid is used in reference to either a nucleus or an entire organism in which only one member of each set of homologous chromosomes is present. Hardpan: a hardened soil layer, in the lower AORB horizon, caused by cementation of soil particles. Harsh: a form of soil consistency characterized by hardness. Hay: harvested forage such as alfalfa hay. Hazard: a source of potential injury to a person. Heart: the central portion of a log including the pith and adjacent wood. Heart check: a check that extends in a radial direction from the pith toward, but not to the surface of a piece of wood. Heat pad: a device used to conduct, by direct contact, heat, usually some type of newborn animal. Heart girth is the circumference of the body of an animal behind the shoulders. Heartwood: the inner core of a woody stem, wholly composed non-living cells and usually differentiated from the outer enveloping layer by its darker color. This is the wood extending from the pith to the sapwood, the cells of which are not dead. Heat production: heat released during metabolism. Heavy soil: obsolete, a soil that has a high content of clay and is difficult to cultivate. Hedgerow: trees or shrubs grown closely together so that branches intertwine to form a continuous row. Hedging is the technique of buying and selling that minimizes risk due to price fluctuation. Heifer: a young female cattle under 3 years of age, usually one that has not yet given birth. Hen is a mature female fowl. Herbicide: a chemical applied to cropland as pre-emergence or post-emergence treatment for the control of weeds. Herbicide-tolerant resistant crops are plants genetically engineered to tolerate herbicides used to kill weeds. Herbivorous are animals that subsist on grasses and herbs. Herd: group of cattle, swine, horses, or goats. Heritability: the portion of the total variation or phenotypic differences among animals that is due to heredity. Heterogeneous: complex and not easily described. Heterosis is the second important reason for crossbreeding. The term is used to explain the fact that the hybrids or crossbreeds are usually better off and more vigorous than their parents. Heterozygous: containing unlike alleles at one or more loci as a reactant and not as a solvent. Hill: a place in which 2 or more seeds, a cutting, or a section of the roots or a tuber are planted. Hilling up: the moving of soil towards a row of plants. Hired labor is a farm labor supplied from outside of the family. Hog: domestic swine weighing over about 55 kilograms, 120 pounds. Whole method is a localized fertilizer application applicable on bigger crops and sloping areas. This system makes use of a pointed stake to make several peg holes around the plant or along the rows of crops. Home garden: an area prepared, planted, cultivated, and harvested for the personal consumption and enjoyment of a family unit. Homeostasis is the maintenance of the static or constant conditions in the internal environment of the body. Homeotherms or warm-blooded animals are animals whose body temperature is largely independent of that of the environment. Home range, the area within which the activities of an animal are confined. The boundaries may be marked, such as by scent marking, and also may be defended, depending on the species. Homogenization, fat globules are subjected to mechanical treatment which breaks them down into smaller globules, uniformly dispersed in the milk. Homogenized milk refers to the milk that contains finer globules of butterfat than those present in fresh milk. It is prepared by passing fresh milk through small openings by pressure. Homogeneous materials are materials that have the same structure at all points. Steel consists of randomly oriented iron crystals of different sizes, with other matter in between, and is thus not homogeneous. Homozygous, containing like germ cells. Honeycombing, synonyms: hollow horning, internal checking, interior checking, inner checking, checks, often not visible at the surface, that occur in the interior of a piece of wood, usually along the wood rays. Horizon, relatively uniform materials that extend laterally, continuously, or discontinuously throughout the pedo unit, runs approximately parallel to the surface of the ground and differs from the related horizons in many chemical, physical and biological properties. Horizontal interval, a horizontal interval between corresponding points on successive terraces. Hormone is defined as a substance or chemical mediator produced by the endocrine glands and carried by the blood to some distant part of the body where it exerts its effect. Hot-boned meat refers to the meat deboned before the development of rigor mortis. Hot meat refers to the meat from an illegal source. Humic acid usually refers to the mixture of ill-defined dark organic substances precipitated upon acidification of a dilute alkali extract of soil. Hybrid refers to the offspring of two parents unlike in one or more heritable characters. Hydration, the process whereby a substance takes up water. Hydraulic jump, abrupt turbulent rise in water level from a flow stage less than critical depth to a flow stage greater than critical depth within which the velocity passes from supercritical to subcritical. Hydrogen ion concentration, the hydrogen ion concentration measured in the substrate or liquid media over a range of 0 to 14 pH units. Hydrolysis, in soils, it is the process whereby hydrogen ions are exchanged for cations such as sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Hydromulching, an application method using a water jet to spread a mulch emulsion on a land surface. Hydrophyte, is a plant adapted to wet or submerged condition. Hydroponics, growing of plants in water containing dissolved nutrients, rather than in soil. This process is being used in greenhouses for intensive off-season production of vegetables. Hypocotyl refers to the stem of the embryo or young seedling below the cotyledon. Hypogeal germination, in dicot, it refers to the germination in which the cotyledons do not rise above the soil surface. Igneous, are called as the ancestors of all rocks, were one hot molten liquid masses known as magma which subsequently cooled into firm hard rocks. Examples are granite, rhyolite, obsidian, basalt, gabbro, peridotite, andesite, and diorite. Alluvial horizon, a horizon that receives material in solution or suspension from some other part of the soil. Immature soil, lacking a well-developed pero unit. Immunity refers to the power of an animal to resist and/or overcome an infection to which many of its species are susceptible. Immunize, to render an animal resistant to disease by vaccination. Impervious, not easily penetrated by roots or water. Implant, graft or insert material to intact tissues. Import substitute, is an output of a project that replaces goods or services that would have been imported without the project. Inbred line, is a plant or group of plants that is homozygous. Inbreeding, is a form of non-random mating wherein individuals that are related by descent tend to mate more often than under random mating. Incalf, is a pregnant cow. Incompatibility, is a genetic condition in which certain normal male spores are incapable of functioning on certain pistils. Incomplete flower is a flower missing all or some of the following parts: sepals, petals, stamens, or pistils. Increasing block rate, pricing that reduces water use by structuring water rates to increase per unit charges as the amount used increases. Incubation, maintenance of viable organisms in or a nutrient substrate at constant temperature for a growth period. Incubation period, period starting from the time poultry eggs are set to the time they are hatched. Indehiscent fruit is a fruit that does not split open naturally at maturity. Indeterminate growth refers to the growth exhibited by a stem terminates in a vegetative bud and thus elongates indefinitely. Inelastic demand refers to the price-demand relationship whereby lowering prices translate to lower total revenue. Inert ingredient, any substance other than an active ingredient which is intentionally included in a pesticide. In heat, in estrus or receptive to opposite sex. Inoculation is the introduction of bacteria on seed or into soil. Inoculum, living organisms, or an amount of material containing living organisms which are added to initiate or accelerate a biological process. Inorganic refers to a substance in which carbon-to-carbon bonds are absent, mineral matter. In-roll liquid tube, a tube, of various materials, which is positioned in or behind the soil opening component so that liquid fertilizers are deposited in the seeded furrow before closure. Insecticide, a chemical used to control insects on plants or plant parts. Insect-resistant plants are plants resistant to certain insect pests, through a built-in insecticide. Inspection, process of determining whether the grade standards have been interpreted or enforced properly by inspecting random samples usually of predetermined amount large enough to give an indication of the correctness of the grading procedures. Integrated crop management, ICM, is a system which integrates a number of ways to control pests and increase yields, including natural, biological controls and careful use of chemicals. Integrated pest management, IPM, use the best features of chemical, biological, and cultural controls in an overall pest control program. Integrated resource planning, the management of two or more resources in the same general area, commonly includes water, soil, timber, grazing land, fish, wildlife, and recreation. Intellectual property refers to the property arising from creativity or original knowledge. Intensive farming is a method of farming which utilizes an increasing amount of labor and capital to the same area of land. Intensive property, its value is independent of the size or extent of a system and may vary from place to place within the system at any moment, i.e. pressure, temperature, and density. Inferior ovary is an ovary that is embedded in the receptacle, or an ovary whose base is below the point of attachment of the perianth. Inflation is the rise in the amount of money in circulation beyond the legitimate needs of the business so as to cause a reduction in the value of money and increases the price level. Inflorescence is any structurally organized group of flowers. Infrastructure, the transportation network, communications systems, financial institutions, and other public and private services, necessary for economic activity. Inhalation exposure, exposure to pesticides through inhalation. Intercrop, the growing of two or more crops simultaneously in the same plot in alternating rows or sets of rows. Intercropping, planting two or more crops in the same land area at the same time, often used to help control pest populations that often occur on monoculture crops. Interest is the payment for the use of capital. Interest rate, the price of money saved and invested or loaned. Interior plywood, type of plywood intended for inside use, having limited moisture resistance. International trade barriers, regulations used by governments to restrict imports from other countries. Examples include tariffs, embargoes, import quotas, and unnecessary sanitary restrictions. Intertilled crop is a crop planted in rows followed by cultivation between the rows. Interval feeding, feed is available to livestock intermittently at preset intervals. Intrinsic permeability, the property of a porous material that expresses the ease with which gases or liquids flow through it. Invisible grain damage, kernel damage which requires instrumentation or special procedures for determination. In vivo, within the living body. Ion, an electrically charged element, group of elements or particle.
Hope it helps. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next part. Please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video and comment your suggestion on topic you want to hear. Bye. Roar.